Many of you have commented that with the big new visual update coming to Conan Exiles, you're thinking about trying the game for the very first time. And I thought this could be a great opportunity to give you guys a rundown of kind of what my experiences have been over the past few years, the good and the bad, to help you decide, is this the time to get into the game, or is this not the game for you? Now, before I begin, I want to say something very quickly, which is the new visual update that's coming to the game is free, which is fantastic, but it's for Steam users only. And that leaves console players feeling shafted, to be honest. And even more so because the platforms that aren't getting the UE5 update are also not going to be getting future content updates. That sucks. Funcom, if by any chance you're listening to this, just bring it to console. Console players deserve it, they make up a bulk of your player base. Or at the very least, just be open and honest with console players about why it's an impossibility right now. Set the expectations so that players aren't left hanging. Common sense. With that said, this video is going to be relevant for all Conan Exiles players because I'm going to be focusing on the base Conan Exiles experience as it is today. Conan Exiles is an open world multiplayer sandbox base building survival craft game, but you get the point. It's very similar to other survival craft games like Ark or Valheim or Enshrouded. And in my opinion, Conan Exiles is one of the better survival craft games out there and is actually a little bit underrated. It's set in the lore and universe of Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian. This universe is brutal and gritty. There's lots of blood and gore and adult themes. It's an ancient world of sword and sorcery and barbarism. You get races and religions that are heavily inspired by ancient civilizations in the real world, like the Egyptians or the Romans or the Greeks. And when you get into the game for the first time, you're met with the character creator. Now, the character creation tool in this game, in my opinion, is average. I mean, it does the job, but you get a few options for faces, you get a few different hairstyles, you can choose the race of your character, you can choose if you're male or female, you have sliders that determine the size of your body parts, and yes, I do mean all your body parts. You can even determine a kind of a backstory for your character by choosing what crimes your character's committed in the past that's led to them ending up in the situation they're in. And when you enter the game for the first time, you get a cutscene where Arnold Schwarzenegger from Wish comes and rescues you from your fate and sets you off in the world to survive with nothing. I mean, literally nothing. You are butt naked and there you are. Off you go. Good luck. But this is actually the first hint of one of the better things that Conan Exiles does, and that is the sense of zero to hero. If you're somebody who loves progression and the feeling of getting stronger in a game and starting from nothing, this is going to be a game that you enjoy because you really do start with nothing. And what Conan Exiles does really well, in my opinion, is it weaves together a lot of different progression mechanics to really make you feel like you are getting stronger throughout the game. And basically going from this forsaken prisoner that was left for dead to becoming someone that can hold their own, to becoming someone that even takes over this whole land. So as you're dropped into the world for the first time, you're in the desert and you are met with these things called journeys. And journeys initially serve as the kind of tutorials that teach you the mechanics of the game. One of the very first journeys is to collect fiber from a bush. So you learn how to harvest fiber. The next one teaches you how to preserve your dignity and actually create some rags out of that fiber so that you can cover yourself up and actually get some protection from the elements. And this is a survival game, so you do need to protect yourself from the elements, whether it's heat or cold. That's something you're going to have to worry about. You're going to have to worry about hunger and thirst. And these are things that at the very least in the beginning of the game will hound you. You'll have to pay attention to them and make sure that you're eating and drinking and things like this. Very quickly you'll make your way forward and you'll end up in the starter zone. And this is kind of like an oasis type environment. And you are going to learn just how brutal this world can be. I remember the first time I got into the oasis, I made my way to the river that's there because my character was dying of thirst. And I took a sip of water and then out of a bush sprung a crocodile that just bit me in half. There was blood and gore and everything all over the place. Now, other than scaring the shit out of me for the very first time, the importance of this is that it teaches you that this world is unforgiving, and you very quickly develop a resolve to be able to fight back and you will have already gained experience, and when you level up in this game, you gain attribute points that you can spend to become stronger. And you can spend them on attributes like strength that will make you more powerful with big two-handed weapons, or perhaps you'll spend them on agility that will make you more effective with using quick weapons like daggers or ranged weapons like the bow. You can also spend them on attributes like expertise, which will actually make you much better at mining and carrying resources, which isn't helpful for combat, but it's really helpful in the early game when you're trying to get your base built quickly. There's also an attribute called authority, which doesn't increase your combat capabilities, but makes you a much more effective leader when you've got NPC followers doing all the combat for you. So while this isn't the most complex or exciting skill tree I've ever seen in a game, it at least gives you enough variety that you can determine what kind of character do I want to be. And this is compounded by the fact that there are many unique and different weapon types that you can choose from. So for example, my favorite weapon to use are the big warhammers, because I just love the feeling of just swinging them around and knocking all the enemies around me like flying. The cool thing here is that every weapon type has its own unique animations that really emphasize what the weapon should feel like. Short swords are quick and stabby, whereas great swords are heavy and powerful, and you can chop people in half with them. There are cool finisher execution moves that sometimes happen when you're attacking an enemy that are just super cheesy and super gory. Now, like many things in this game, they're very buggy and they don't always line up, but I like them. And the way combat works for all weapon types is that it's a stamina management system. You have a stamina bar. The more you swing your sword or the more you jump or dodge, you reduce it. And if your stamina bar gets reduced to 0, your character's going to stall for a bit. And then it's game over because your enemies are going to wail on you at that point. Personally, I quite like the stamina management system because it's one of those things you can just kind of learn over time and just get better and better at it. But there is a huge difference in opinion on combat between PvP and PvE players. So I'm mostly a PvE player. What I seem to find is most PvE players enjoy the combat, but PvP players cannot stand it. But players that expect a really robust PvP combat system in their games are often quite frustrated with this one. And for two reasons. One is that often you'll see two players circling each other and just rolling constantly to avoid each other's attacks. And it just turns into a dodge roll fest, which looks ridiculous. The second one is that PvP in this game is largely dependent on how good your ping is. And one of the hugest complaints about this game is that there is a lot of lag, especially on the official servers. And at that point, when your opponent's just lagging around and dodging all over the place, but kind of just disappearing and reappearing over there, PvP just becomes really frustrating. So learning and mastering combat and increasing your stats are two ways to become more powerful in the game and progress. Another way to become more powerful is to get better gear. And to get better gear, you're going to need to build a base, because in your base you can place crafting stations. And these crafting stations, like a blacksmith or a leatherworking station, are really going to be the key to you unlocking and creating new gear. So very quickly in the game, one of the journeys you're going to come across is how to build a base. And you're going to put down your first 4 foundations, you're going to put walls around it, you're going to put a roof on, you're going to stand back, and you're going to admire the amazing cube you've just built. But this is where you have two types of players and where it potentially gets fun. Because on the official servers, you'll often be running around and you'll see massive just Tetris cube bases where players have just stacked walls on top of each other and then out to the side and whatever works, right? That is a valid gameplay style. But if you're like me, you might be somebody who really loves to go to town on building a really immersive looking base that looks like it could be like an NPC village or town or castle in the world. I don't know about you guys, but I love it when I'm walking around a server and I come across like a castle or a mansion or something like that where a player has painstakingly spent hours really crafting a beautiful looking base. And I actually want to give a shout out here because there is a YouTuber called Barden who has massively inspired a lot of the bases I've built in the game. He has really clear tutorials on how to build really cool looking houses and castles and villages and things. Like he's even built like Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings in Conan Exiles, which is wild to me. So I'm going to leave a link to his channel in the description below, so go give him some love. Now when it comes to building, you can actually build some really cool looking shit in the game with just the basic base building materials that you're given. But it is also true, the coolest looking shit comes from the bazaar and from downloadable content. Which means that if you want the really cool looking shit, yeah, you're gonna have to spend some real life money in the in-game shop. Typically, I'm not a fan of in-game stores, but if you're like me and you love building cool looking bases, then you might feel some of the pieces are worth it. Now, there is a problem I often find with games like this when it comes to base building, and that is that I might find myself spending hours and hours building up a crazy cool looking base. Maybe I built a village with a blacksmith over there and a tavern, and then when I stand back and look at it, the base just feels really empty. Like there's no life in it whatsoever. Conan Exiles solves this with Thralls, and I actually think this mechanic helps Conan Exiles stand out against the competition here. Basically, when you go out into the world, you're going to find a lot of other exiles, human NPCs, that you can whack around the head with a truncheon, tie a rope around their feet, drag them back to your base, put them on something called the Wheel of Pain, and break their spirit. And once this has happened, they will submit to you and you can place them in your base and make them work for you. Now again, this game is brutal and this is very in keeping with the lore of the Conan franchise. The reason this is so cool is because it fills your base with NPCs that actually have in-game benefits. So for example, you can go out and find a NPC that specializes in blacksmithing. You can put him to work on your smithy and now he will make it so that crafting weapons is a lot faster or uses less resources. Later on in the game, you can find elite specialists that will actually increase the stats of the gear you craft. And because there are so many different specialists, you can really fill your base with a variety of NPCs that all give you different benefits. You can also recruit NPCs that specialize in combat. So maybe you place a few as guards in the front of your base, or maybe you place some archers on the walls to defend it. On top of all of this, Funcom added a feature called Living Settlements, which make it so the NPCs don't just stand at their workstation, but they actually walk around your base. They'll go worship at a shrine you've put down, or they'll go eat at the tavern, or they'll go to sleep at night and then go back to work in the day. And what this means is when you're walking around your base, no longer are they empty and lifeless, but you've got NPCs that work for you, walking around, engaging with things, and then actually working in your base and giving you in-game benefits. And this is a breath of fresh air in these games because it breathes life into the bases that we're creating. Unfortunately, like many things in this game, this comes with the catch that it is extremely buggy, often make online servers really laggy. And this is a massive shame because these features are fantastic in concept, it's just that they cause problems. So with all of these mechanics at play, what is your ultimate goal as a player? Well, there is a loose story in the world that you can follow. Unfortunately, it's a bit lackluster in my opinion. Like, you go around the world, you discover journals and things and read them to get little pieces of the story that you kind of put together to figure out what's going on. But I think for most players, the ultimate goal is to just survive, progress, and explore through the world so that you can get new resources to bring back, get better gear, and advance further and further through the world until you get to a point where you've made the biggest, baddest base and you are the baddest warrior on the server. Now, when you're exploring the world to get these new resources, the cool thing is that the world has a variety of environments. It's not like Dune Awakening where the whole world is just sand. No, you actually get things like a jungle environment and a savanna environment and a oasis and a snowy environment. You get a whole volcano environment that's just ash and lava everywhere. I remember getting to the highlands for the very first time after spending a lot of time in the desert, and I remember feeling a sense of relief as I saw like the lush grass and the pine trees and the flowing rivers and things. All of these areas have different and relevant creatures in them that add to the vibe and tone of the environment. And yes, you can tame these creatures and bring them back to your base and have them follow you around and fight with you. And yes, some of these creatures can be turned into mounts that you can ride around for a speed boost. You can get horses, you can even get rhino mounts. There's nothing more badass than riding a fucking rhino into a battle, right? I mean, that's cool. You can also fight from the back of these mounts, although I have to say mounted combat is limited and you're probably better off fighting on foot. But something I think Conan Exiles gets right is that the world feels constantly engaging as you're wandering it. So it's a bit like Hogwarts Legacy and that golden rule of every 15 seconds a player should come across a new event or something that they can go and explore if they choose to. It definitely feels like you'll never be bored in the Exiled Lands. There's always a cave over there to explore, or an elite mob over there that you want to kill for some cool loot, or a dungeon with a boss in it that's really challenging, so there's always something. And so that's the Exiled Lands, and that's the map you get from the base game. But there's also the Isle of Siptah, which is a new map that comes from a DLC, but you get to explore new lands and come across new resources and things, so that's cool. Something else that's great about this game is that it has a huge modding community. Places like Nexus Mods and the Steam Workshop host a plethora of mods that might either overhaul the game completely, or just give you new decorations, weapon types, skins, or quality of life features. Also, I will say that despite all the jankiness and the bugs, This game does feel fun in co-op. If you're playing with friends, building bases together, doing dungeons, taking on the world, I can't deny that it does feel fun. Lastly, a final feature I haven't mentioned yet is the avatar system. And basically you have religions in the game and you can follow one of these religions. And the more you worship it and work at it, you can earn unique rewards, and eventually, if you spend enough resources, you can summon these things called avatars. They're basically like giant versions of the deity you're worshipping. And you can temporarily take control of these things, and they do crazy damage. So you could like sweep through an entire enemy base, and obviously this is really fun and cool, but imagine being someone who spent hundreds of hours making a base, and then an avatar just comes sweeping through and destroys everything. So I can imagine that's pretty frustrating for PvPers, but that's the catch. So with all of that said, the question is, with the new update coming, should you get this game? Well, expect a lot of bugs, but also be prepared to maybe fall in love with everything this game gets right. The building system, Thralls, the sense of progression, the zero to hero feeling, the tone and vibe, and if you generally love Conan the Barbarian, yeah, this one's kind of a win. If you're a PvEer or just want to co-op with friends or play single player, if you like to play games for tone or immersion, you're probably going to enjoy this one. If you're a PvPer on the other hand, prepare to be extremely frustrated. And not just because of all the bugs and lag that you're going to experience, but also because, you know, these servers are taken up with people that have already entered the game and spent years building their bases, so it's going to be hard to get a foothold. If you're on console, you're still going to get all the good and bad experiences I've just spoken about, but if you're feeling shafted by the fact that you won't get future content updates, I wouldn't blame you for waiting. I hope you guys have found this video useful, or at the very least found it entertaining, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe because it will really help the channel out going forward. Best of luck in the exiled lands, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Woo!